all you folks, and welcome to Kelly's Chronicles, my channel where I sit down with people who are living everyday lives and listen to their extraordinary stories hidden behind normal, quiet existences. Because here we believe those lives are the most important and need to be acknowledged, heard, and celebrated, as to not be forgotten by the passage of time. Hope you all had a wonderful week, and welcome to the channel. Welcome, Dad.
How's my week?
How was your week? How did it go?
I'm struggling to. We have a little window of good weather before we're gonna get some rain and snow next week, and I'm trying to get a lot of the outdoor stuff done. So I'm scrambling a little bit, and I had a little episode a couple days ago. I think it was food poisoning, and put me put me down for like 12 hours. I was in a lot of distress.
Are you doing better? Are you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm over it now, pretty much, and
Poison is
and
the worst.
yeah, yeah, it was pretty bad, and that
We
was
won't name the restaurant on here. We won't name the
yeah,
culprit. It was a local one.
yeah, it was. I mean, I got that plate, and I looked at it, and I said, I'm not sure this is a taco, because you could see the edges of the tortillas in there, and the rest of it was covered with onions and cheese.
Uh,
I mean, just totally looked like he took a 5-gallon bucket of cheese and onions and dumped it on top of these poor old tacos. And down and buried in there was some meat. And your mom got shrimp tacos. It was Taco Tuesday. And so she got shrimp tacos and I got beef tacos. And that was we should not have got tacos.
you gotta be really, as a connoisseur of traveling and food, which Danny and I have eaten at some very different places, gotta be kind of careful when you look at the food. But when we were in
Yeah.
Mexico City, we got really bad food poisoning, and everything has water, is washed in the water. There's ice in the glasses. There's ice in the coffee. They make the coffee with the water.
Yeah.
Everything has water in it. Everything you put water in every item in that location in those places. So it was
Right.
kind of unavoidable. And the more I thought about it, they're like, don't drink the water. I'm like, or the coffee, or eat on the dishes, or eat anything
Right.
at all. Period. Like we would have starved for 10 days.
The only thing that will save you is if you have alcohol with the ice, and the alcohol will kill whatever on the ice. So
We got so
whatever,
sick.
don't drink the
Oh,
water.
yeah, you bathe in it, you brush your teeth in it. Like, you can't just have bottles upon bottles of water in your hotel room. It just really doesn't work that way. So,
Yeah,
keep power in it. Yeah, it was inevitable. I kind of knew we were gonna get sick when we were there, but we took a chance. It was fun because we got engaged there and it was really nice.
yeah,
Hot air balloons, we got to see the pyramids. It was a really crazy, awesome, amazing experience, but we definitely got
yeah.
really sick. Well, I'm glad you're recovering. I'm glad you kind of have a little bit of window of time to get some stuff done. Holidays are upon us. Really excited to see
Yep.
you guys here pretty soon. My mom's getting all geared up. My mom has a giant 3-leveled Christmas village that she very much so anticipates setting up every year. It's very um, elaborate. It has a lot of detail to it. She's worked on it for years, so she sets it up every year. And
Yep.
I'll post a picture in here. I'll show you guys. It's really great. So I'm definitely looking forward to having Christmas over there and having some time off. But this week was pretty good for us. We're over here in Hampton Beach, New Hampshire, right on the water. And we are just enjoying the tour still. It's been fun. So that we've been doing pretty good over here. And last week we were bouncing a little bit between Turkey and Georgia. We just chit chatted on our last video. It was really fun. It was a good time. We have a really good relationship where we can just chat all day and worry about the time. So get a little bit sidetracked of the time. So this week we're gonna put Turkey to the side a little bit, and we're gonna head on back to Georgia and stick in Georgia for a little bit because there's a lot of stories that you've got in that area, Dad, and especially you going to school and you're becoming a teenager. So we got quite a few fun stories that we want to share with you today. And Dad gave me a couple little hints that we're gonna follow along with. So we wanted to start off this video with a story about Buddy Holly. What do you think, Dad?
Okay. Okay. Well, this was, I think it was in 58 when Buddy Holly died. It was him and the Big Bopper and one other guy, a Hispanic kid, that were killed in a plane crash up in Iowa. And we were just sitting around the house. Uh, I think I went to bed and Dad and Mom were still up. Anyway, this guy comes pounding on the door of the trailer, and
What time
we
is
had
it?
moved. Now we had moved from the red trailer, the 8x35. We'd moved into a 10x46, and that back in those days, that's how you characterize trailers, was the size. You
And you
know,
moved up in the
it
world.
was all. So we went up to a 10x46, and we moved to a different part of the park, and there were these little trailers in the front of our trailer. There was a bunch of small trailers all in a line, like 3 or 4 of them. And anyway, this guy, and then I can't remember his name. I think it was Floyd was his last name. And he come pounding on the door of the trailer at some ridiculous, like 10, 11 o'clock at night. And he was all teary eyed and just in distress. I thought maybe his mom had died or something. And he says,
Did it wake you up?
"Oh yeah," and Dad. Oh yeah, Dad. I think Dad,
Oh,
like I said, woke me up, and Dad was right there sitting on the couch, and he goes to the door and answers the door, and it's his neighbor, and he's in
I thought it
total
was.
distress. He's crying and just I mean distraught. And Dad says, "Well, what's the problem? You know, can I help you?" And he says, "Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? Buddy Holly's dead." Dad goes, "Who? Buddy Holly. He's dead." Dad goes, "Yeah."
Yeah.
I mean,
He's
what
like,
is he like?
don't like his music.
Yeah, I think he said, "What is he like your cousin or something?" And he said, "No, it's
Oh,
the
Dave.
greatest singer in the world, Buddy Holly. Oh, and he's dead." And
Josh.
he hasn't got a clue who Buddy Holly is because he
He's
did
just like,
not into rock at all. And so, and I think he invited him in, and and got him calmed down a
oh,
little bit. And he went back home to the trailer in front of us there, and but he was really out of it. He couldn't I mean, total breakdown.
working in the
What's
field of
that?
celebrities, there are people that get really obsessed. I
Yeah.
can tell you
Well,
that
like
right
when
now.
Elvis died, people were just
Oh yeah,
going nuts. And
the Beatles.
we still lived over in the red trailer, the 8x35. We had a neighbor, our nearest neighbor lived kind of behind, on the road, but another lot down. It was funny because he was right. There was this huge pecan tree. I'm talking a monster. This thing was, oh geez, it probably covered, I don't know, a football field. It was huge.
These are
And
pecans that you weren't allowed to touch. Am I correct?
right, and he lived right underneath a tree, and in the fall the pecans would be dropping down on his trailer
Oh my
night
god.
and day like a hailstorm. And I'm going, how do they live there? I mean, that's crazy. Because I mean, you could, and those tin box trailers, they used to have no
They,
insulation at all,
yeah, I
hardly.
was gonna say
And you could
they
hear a
smoke.
pecan drop. You can hear a pecan drop on the top of that trailer, and it was just ding, 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 ding,
We
day
were
and
having
night.
issues with that in the oak. We were underneath an oak tree with our last camper at my
Yeah,
sister-in-law Tracy's, and in the
right.
fall time, I'm telling you what, the acorns, the sticks, and
Yeah,
those gosh darn squirrels were having a party up on the roof. They
yeah.
kept me up.
Well,
Anyway,
it's like when we lived there in Arkansas, we had that hickory tree right next to the house. And the squirrels would get up there and eat those green hickory nuts and scatter the shells all over the top of the house. And I try to shoot the stupid squirrels, and I never could really
Never
thin them
could, yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Of a
so
squirrel problem in Arkansas. They
yeah,
would get up in the anyway. They were kind of an issue, but yeah,
yeah,
I can definitely I sympathize with the man. That's all I'm trying to say is I
yeah.
sympathize with
He was the guy was he was an Air Force guy. He was an airman, and he was married to a Japanese girl, and
him. Oh,
not sure exactly how he met her in Japan or whether they I don't know. She was his wife, and he would get drunk. I mean, the guy was an alcoholic, and he'd get drunk, and he would go out and he would crawl underneath a trailer. I'm not sure what the deal was, but he would go out and crawl underneath the trailer, just stone drunk, and his wife would come out and say, uh, Paul, poor Paul, poor Paul.
poor
But she was speaking Japanese. So she was saying something in Japanese, but it sounded like she was saying poor Paul. And Dad couldn't figure out what she was saying. He thought she was saying like uh Paul or something. And so he went over one day and said, you know, you have is there something I can help? And she points to underneath the trailer, and this guy Paul was underneath the trailer. And Dad went over and started
he
trying to
was
talk to
sleeping.
him. You know, you can't be underneath the trailer. There's all kinds of spiders and snakes and everything else underneath that trailer. You need to get out from underneath the trailer. And he's all, I don't want to. I
Oh,
like it here. Dad said, okay, poor Paul. You stay underneath the trailer.
poor Paul. Poor Paul.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
he's
wouldn't
so
come.
white.
Poor
Oh
Paul
my
wouldn't come
gosh, I
out
love
underneath
Julius.
the trailer. And yeah, you remember me talking about my school. I went to
Yeah.
Pine Grove Elementary School and it actually wasn't in Valdosta. It was actually a little bit south of the Air Force Base, so it would be in
Top of
Barretts,
the
Georgia. And yeah, I've looked. It's still there. I mean, I looked it up. The Pine Grove Elementary, it's still there. It's a totally different building, but
probably.
it's still being used. And the school I was in was a brick school built by the WPA, the Work Progress Administration, during the Roosevelt era back in the Depression. And it was a sturdy little school. It wasn't very big, and they had a nice auditorium though, nice big auditorium, and I would say probably a dozen, maybe 15 classrooms. And then it had an annex where they had built a breezeway over and had built an addition to the school in modern architecture in 60s, 50s, and 60s, modern architecture, all the glass and all that. And then they had a little seriously, a tar paper shack, which was a lunchroom. And, uh, and I can remember that every day these poor ladies that were working in that kitchen in that tar paper shack would cook cornbread muffins. That was their every day at lunch. That's all I never ate breakfast or anything. Because always lunch was cornbread muffins and usually beans. Because that they probably weren't getting much money from the state or the federal government to provide food for us kids. And then they had the little half pint milk cartons, and that was I love that. I could have just had the milk and forgot about the cornbread muffins and the beans. Pretty southern and pretty basic food, and I mean they tried their best, but it was just and the school was crowded. I mean, because all of the Air Force kids all went there, and all the local, if there was any local kids, they went there too. And there was quite a few local kids that went there because this was a very prolific farming area. There was lots of tobacco farms and peanut farms and and the kids, all these farm kids went there. So good mix of, but it was really crowded. I can distinctly remember my fourth grade class had Mrs. Davis was my fourth grade teacher, and we had 56 kids in that classroom, 56
Oh,
fourth
that's a
graders,
lot of kids.
and
Classroom.
she was just scurrying around trying to keep control, and it got so bad. She had you know what a flyback paddle is? It's like, almost like a ping pong paddle with a rubber, like an elastic, and a ball, and you're supposed to hit the ball. And there's a scene from the movie The Misfits with Marilyn Monroe and Clark Gable. There's one scene where she was using this flyback paddle, and she was going at it. I mean, just knocking this thing. And there's this whole scene of Marilyn Monroe doing a flyback paddle. That's what this teacher had. She had one of those paddles. And if you were a bad person and you did a nasty thing in class, like you talked out of turn or you didn't turn in your homework, she would give you that paddle and say, "Give yourself 3 licks." I'm serious. You paddled yourself.
Handle it yourself, huh? I
It
mean,
was,
hey,
she had so many kids that she couldn't even paddle the kids. And I just remember Mrs. Davis, and we had other I had other teachers, but unfortunately I don't remember except her. And the seventh grade teacher was the mother of my best friend, Mrs.
wow,
Lassiter. And so Mrs. Lassiter, she was a real strict teacher, seventh grade teacher, and she didn't put up with any messing around. And she had a paddle, and she would use it. And if you messed up, she would send you down to the vice principal, and he'd tear you up. So yeah, corporal punishment was in vogue back in those days. No asking the parents' permission. They understood that if you messed up in school, you were probably going to get a paddling. One time I was on the bus. We had this old bus, probably from, I would say, late 40s, early 50s. It was a pretty rickety old bus. And I was on that bus one day, and I guess I was misbehaving. I was talking or something. The driver stopped the bus. I'm serious. The driver stops the bus in the middle of nowhere, and he said, "You out." And so I went out. He said, "Bend over that fender." So I bent over the fender because the bus had two big fenders in the front because it's an
yeah.
old bus. So I bent over the fender, and he gave me 3 licks with the paddle. I didn't even know he had a paddle under his seat. I didn't know that until it was used on my fanny.
And boy, you
So
strained up real quick, huh?
yeah, oh yeah. It didn't
Oh
really,
yeah.
it wasn't like I was tortured or beaten and bled or anything like that. It was
Oh,
just three
but
three solid licks on your butt, and that was it. And that straightened me right out. I don't think I ever even come close to getting, because I mean, how embarrassing is that?
all the kids were watching too.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. There was like,
Well, like,
I'm sure they were hanging out the windows and everything, seeing if I was going to be beaten senseless. That was kind of the culture down there. It was you towed the line. If you did something wrong, there was no doubt about you were going to get a spanking from somebody. Somebody going to whoop on you. Another thing about the school was not air conditioned, and they had these big windows. Like, I'm talking, the top of the window was probably 12 feet high, and the windows were probably, I'd say, 6 feet tall. Yeah, and they would open the windows up when the weather really got hot in the early spring or late fall when we'd be in school. And we were there sitting there one day, and they had all around the school. They had gallberry bushes, and gallberry is a shrub that grows in South Georgia, and it gets to be pretty big. It gets to be like about 20 feet high, and it spreads out quite a bit. And they had these gallberry bushes all the way around the school. And we would get underneath the gallberry, between the gallberry bush and the school, and we had like a tunnel in there. We'd run around the school and chase each other. This one day we were sitting in class, and this was, I think, in the 6th grade or something. And this gallberry bush was like right outside the window, this huge bush. And this puff adder, which is a little harmless snake that they got a lot of down there in Georgia. And this puff adder gets up in this gallberry bush, and the boy in the back of the class, he looks over and he sees that puff adder up in that gallberry bush, and he grabs it and he is wrapped around his hand and everything, and he goes over to this girl. He says, "Look what I got!" And boy, she went nuts. She thought it was like a rattlesnake or something, because these puff adders, they hiss a lot and swell up, because that's what we call them, puff adders. They puff themselves up to make them bigger. And this thing he was not happy being in this guy's hand, and he's all puffed out and hissing. And this girl, she runs out of the classroom. Oh, and I don't think she came back. I think she went home. Right. Yeah, and
It was usually a boy's typical way of showing his affections towards the women back in the day, wasn't it?
right, yeah. Anything was weird or different or slimy or anything like a frog or something, boy, they had to show that off. Look at my frog. The the school had a really big auditorium. I probably would seat 300 or 400 people, and had all these old wooden seats. There was no cushion on them at all. It's just a wooden the seat folded up, and it had just a wooden plywood seat. And I can remember distinctly, we were in there one time. They would have these traveling people who would come through, and they had one guy that came through. He typed 150 words a minute or something, and he brought in these typewriters, and he was typing all this stuff, and everybody going, "Ooh, so fast." And they didn't show the paper. It might have just been this mass of writing that was nonsensical. He was a master of typing. Then had another guy that came through. He had liquid oxygen. He had a tank of liquid oxygen. He was like, he took a balloon and put it in liquid oxygen, and it turned into like this solid rubber cylinder, and then he broke it. They had some singers that came through, but that was a big deal, was to go to the assemblies in the auditorium. They had the whole school would be in there and watching. And at one time, when I first got there, because I got there in the 2nd grade, and about the 5th or 6th grade, they took the high school kids out of the school. Because up until then, it was 1st through 12. It was a total
Okay.
package. And they finally took the seniors, or the high school kids, out and sent them to Hayhira, which is another little town kind of north of where we were at. And all the high school kids were bused to Hayhira after that. And we didn't I think that they still rode the bus with us, and they ride the bus to our school, and then they would transfer to another bus, which would go on to Hayhira. So the high school kids, as far as I can remember, they always rode the school bus with us, even when they were going to another building in another town. They still rode in the bus with us, and you got these little 1st graders and 2nd graders in there with these high school, like, seniors and juniors, and there was some shenanigans on the bus sometimes. They just they love to try to impress the little kids,
Oh yeah, always.
Yeah, it was
Just somebody.
sometimes got a little weird. I can remember there was a girl. She was a daughter of the store owner, the Ruis Grocery, which was right there.
Grocery, yeah.
Right across the road we had to cross this highway to get to it. And my folks didn't really like that. I just run wild, so they really didn't have too much of a say on where I actually went. It was the daughter of the owner. Her name, I think, Shirley Ruiz. I'd have to look on my yearbook, but she was gorgeous. Just this little Georgia country girl, and I just fell in love with her. I mean, I had to go. She'd work in the
Romance.
store. She'd be there in the weekends and stuff, working in the store, and I would make some kind of excuse to go over there and buy. Like I had penny candies and all kind. I go over there and buy a couple of penny candies, just to be in her presence. And she rode the bus with us, and when she would come on the bus, it was like I just shut down. Like I just got to look at her. I can't help it. She's so pretty, you know.
Well, you were a handsome little boy too. You have big blue eyes and long eyelashes.
Oh,
Long eyelashes. So you're a handsome fella too. But that's
yeah. But yeah, there was a definite age difference there, probably 10 years at least. I spent a lot of time in the summers when I was out of school, I would ride. There was like, we were on a road that went right and dead ended into the back fence of the Air Force Base. So if you rode down the road about a half a mile or so, you would hit the chain link fence with the 3 strands of barbed wire, a standard government fence around the
right.
back of this would be the north side of the Air Force Base. But there was a railroad that ran through the whole area. It was just a regular railroad, and it ran, I would say, probably 150 yards to the east of our trailer park, and then it went down and it crossed the road about between us and the Air Force Base. The railroad crossed the road and went down by the Air Force Base and then on down to Valdosta. Between where the railroad crossed the road and the Air Force Base fence was a swampy area.
Mm.
And it was absolutely packed full of poisonous snakes. I mean, it
Of
was
course it was.
rattlesnakes, water moccasin, and every other kind of snake you can think of
Just having
in
a
that
snake party back
in
there.
that swamp. And guess what? There was a little road that went through there that went from the dirt road to the railroad, and it was a shortcut. It was a shortcut. Instead of going up to the fence and taking the road, I had to go through the swamp. I mean, I didn't. That's just kids. They trying to find a shortcut. So I found a shortcut, and I would ride down through there on my little red bike, and I swear there was snakes across because anywhere a snake, of course, is a reptile and have to their bodies keep the same temperature as the outside air, and they'd like to get on that road, that little dirt road. They'd be laying on that dirt road, getting the sun in. And these were big freaking snakes. These were like 6 footers. That was a 6 footer was a baby. And I'd ride down that road, and it would be snakes. There would be snakes everywhere, and I kind of like keep my foot up. I'd pedal a little bit and then raise my feet up, pedal a little bit more, and raise my feet up because these snakes were, they were all over. There were bunches of them, and
I didn't you would be like you rode alone.
oh yeah, and the
No, not today.
rattlesnakes they were humming, and yeah, it was crazy. And I've already told you about the one that I got my bicycle wheel on his head, and
Yeah,
the guy
tell that one.
yeah, I told you that one. That was right there. That was right there. As a matter of fact, I came out of that road and I got onto the main dirt road, and that's where that rattlesnake was sitting right there. And
Boy,
he just crawled out of the swamp, and he was just laying in the sun, having a good time until I came along and put my bicycle wheel on his head. Yeah,
yeah,
it,
he had a
it,
bad day
it,
that day.
yeah, and it was. I looked on Google Earth the other day, and that swamp's still there. It's
Is that
still
really?
there. and the road's still there. Everything is just exactly. I think though that the road is paved now. It's not a dirt road; it's a paved road now. But everything, all the swamps there, railroad tracks there, everything. And whoa! And then
I'm sure if you zoomed in on that road, you could still see the snakes sunning themselves across it.
yeah, and we used to go fishing there in Georgia, and there was all these little sloughs and little creeks, and I mean it was a swamp, and so there was water everywhere for and fish and all, but they were mainly little bluegills, little small fish about the size of your hand, but there was tons of them. They were everywhere, and lots of catfish, and we go out and we catch 100 fish, and not a big deal. We catch 100 fish. They were good eating. They were good eating, but they were just they had to clean them. So you had to scale them, gut them, and all that. And sometimes Dad just, I'm not doing 100 fish. And so he would take, there was down by the railroad where the railroad crossed the road, the dirt road. There was a family, there was a black family lived right there. And it was just a shack with no grass around it at all because the kids had run, they had a bunch of kids, probably half dozen kids, and they had just stomped all the grass down. And it was pretty basic living for them. And we would take these bluegills down to them, like take like 75, 50 or 75 bluegills down
I
there
love that.
and give it to this family, and they really were appreciative of that, and I'm sure that they cleaned them and fed the family. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, and that
That's really cool that you guys would help out, local families and that you didn't discriminate who needed what and who needed a couple fish for the family. That's really cool
right.
that your dad wasn't prejudiced towards anyone. He definitely saw a
Well,
family in need, and that's really cool that he even put the work in for it. He's like, "Don't worry, I'll bring you 50 fish with my two bare hands."
yeah.
He put in the work for it. That's great. Grandpa was a good guy. He definitely I think he had experienced poverty in a really brutal way, and he knew what it was to be very hungry and to be very broke. I think that definitely helped him with being down there in the South and being around people that didn't have very much, no matter what color they were, no matter where they were at in life. He was really good at seeing a need.
Well, here's one other. This is a short one, okay? Because I know you got to go. But
Time.
but Mr. Ham was he
Mr.
told me
Ham.
about
We like Mr.
yeah.
Ham.
Mr. Ham was kind of an amateur farmer. He had a few
Yeah.
little plots of grass crops around, and one of the things he had a watermelon patch just right down by just south of the trailer park. He had probably an acre of watermelons, and so he would ask the young lads in the area if they wanted to make a little extra money. They'd go down and pick watermelons. So he'd bring his pickup truck out there, and we'd pick these watermelons. And these were Georgia stripers. These were huge. These were like 30 or 40 pound watermelons, big, and they were oblong. They weren't round. They were oblong, and they were huge. And we would pick these watermelons and put them in the truck on in his pickup truck, and we were out there one day picking these watermelons, and we picked most of the day. I think we picked for like 4 or 5 hours, and filled up the pickup truck a couple of times. And I'm not sure what he would do. We'd fill the pickup up, and he would leave, and then come back, and it'd be empty. So I don't know where he was going with the watermelon.
Probably selling them.
We picked all day this
Probably
one day, and it was a particularly hot day, and we were out there in the sun picking these watermelons. And so at the end of the day, Mr. Ham paid us with 2 watermelons.
Oh,
And my dad tripped off. He said, "What? He gave you what? That's like 50." Because back then a watermelon was 25 cents for a George Striper.
whoa,
And
that's
So he gave us basically 50 cents for working all day in the sun. And my dad went to Mr. Ham. He said, "You need to pay them boys today," because it was me and Keith was out there. Keith Eubank. He said, "You need to pay them boys 50. That you gave them 50 cents for working all day in the hot sun." Mr. Ham goes, "Well, okay, I reckon I'll give him $1." He gave us $1. So me and Keith made $1 picking watermelons all day.
What the heck?
That was typical for Mr. Ham.
Rescue.
Yeah, he wasn't gonna put up with it.
No, sir. You pay my son, and you pay my son's friend. Darn it. Well, that was a good story. Well, we gotta jump off here because I'm about ready to do our load in for this video.
Okay.
That was more some fun stories, and we got to know your dad a little bit better. How good of a human he really was in his big old tough exterior, soft heart. That's awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us this week, and we hope you all have a great week. Please be safe out there. Please join us next week. We post every weekend. Like, comment, and share if you can. Share with your friends and your family. We just have good old wholesome stories and fun on here, and sometimes some important things, sometimes some sad things, but mainly some fun things. But you guys have a great week, and we will see you next time.